Hi everybody, my name is Donna. I'm an early childhood music specialist, and this is a video on how you can use inquiry-based learning with very young children to explore the concepts of dissonance and consonance. And the reason why I like doing this is because it helps children have a physical basis, a personal basis for understanding these concepts before they're older and they're understanding music theory when they're in a conservatory or in a university, and just learning it through a book or with an instructor. And it's a really fun way to get them to experience it for themselves. So when we talk about dissonance and consonance, we're talking about how well notes get along, because notes are actually made up of overtones, and so sometimes those overtones work really nicely together and match well, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're fighting. So when we hear notes that sound like they're out of tune, or we talk about clashing, or sometimes we'll talk about a chord being crunchy if it's really, really dissonant, those are the concepts that we're talking about. And so I like doing this with them because it's, like I said, it's fun, and they get to kind of decide for themselves before they start to understand in a more formal setting. And you'll notice too with this that some children don't always react to that interval that's dissonant the right way right off the bat. And with those children, I just keep doing it, and then I might explain, you know what, these notes don't get along as well. So I don't use the words dissonant and consonance. What I'm really talking about is how well do these notes get along? Not do they get along or don't they get along, but more of a spectrum, because that's kind of the way how the intervals, how they work. There's better ones, and then there's not so good ones. Yeah, and so what I use for this activity are handbells. These you can get for, I think they're about $65 Canadian. I got them on empiremusic.ca. You can also find them on the website that shall not be named. No judgment if you shop there. I sometimes need to get stuff from there too, but they don't need any extra publicity. Anyway, you can get them too, but I highly recommend not getting too inexpensive because you want them to be higher quality. But yeah, and you'll notice that I really like them because they ring and ring and ring and ring and ring. So because that sound is carrying on and on and on, when you add two notes to it, you know, especially if you're holding them really close, that's where you can really feel it in your body. And so I like to have children experiment. They can have one in each ear. They can try, you know, holding close down here. Where do you feel it? What does it feel like? So that's why I like using these handbells for this activity. And the other thing I was just going to say, anytime that you're buying any kind of instrument for children where the notes are different colored, I really recommend making sure that the C is red. And that's because children who have people who have perfect pitch also often have synesthesia, meaning that they see colors through the pitch. And these ones can vary a bit, but one thing that tends to be pretty constant is that C tends to be red. So that just helps children, I don't know, it helps them so that it's not too confusing for them if they do have perfect pitch. Yeah, and so what I always start with is the octave, because with all of these guys, these are the two that are the best friends. These are the notes that get along the best. So we're going to listen to an octave, right? And you can feel that. Letting children really taking a moment to feel it. So, you know, if you're doing mindfulness training with them too, this is a really good example to, you know, you could have them close their eyes, take a deep breath. and just really pay attention to how that feels. They don't have to label right away and say how good friends they are, but this is just for them to take some time to explore that sensation. And then you can try doing, you can also have them play one at a time. So you notice, oh, it's the same note. This is the higher version, this is the lower version, but it's the same note. So that's probably why they're such good friends. Next, we move to perfect fifths. So this is with a C and a G. This is the next best friends. So you can feel those are pretty good friends there. And then we're going to do a perfect fourth. Those are pretty good friends too, but now we want it. Sometimes we want this guy to move down an octave, you know, not an octave, but down to another F. So that's why it's we're starting to argue a little bit. We're still best friends, but we're not quite getting along as well. Yeah, and then you can do a major six, so with a C and an A. Okay, those are still pretty good friends. Let's try another one. Let's try a major third. Yeah, those are really good friends. And one thing you can also do is you can even add a G. Now you have 3 notes as a chord. But for today, let's just do intervals. Then you can do minor third. So when we talk about something minor, the reason why minor often we talk about being the sad key is because that third is just a little bit too low. It's just a tiny bit dissonant. And so it's a little bit wrong. And that's why we get that sad feeling when we hear minor. Here's a minor third. Okay. Now we're going to do a major second. They're getting closer and closer together. I like that one. Okay, and this is something else too, is sometimes children will just have a preference. Just as some kids like spicy foods and some don't, or some people like really bright lights and loud noises and some don't. It's the same thing with music. Some people really, really like the dissonant intervals. So if they say, oh, those are great friends, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not identifying it dissonant. It just means that that's their preference. And so that's why we don't want to get into labeling right away. And this is really just more of an exploration activity. And then we have minor seventh. So now we're getting to be even more arguing going on here. Yeah, sometimes you might see them make a face. Sometimes, like, I try to keep my face as neutral as possible so I'm not influencing them, but I love watching their faces because sometimes when you get to the more dissonant intervals, they look like they just were sucking a lemon, and it's fantastic, you know, for them to be experiencing that. And then we have a major seventh. Ooh. Oh, they're starting to get... These are starting to get some enemies here. Oh boy, oh boy. You could, for minor second, I'm going to do E and F. So this is a minor second. All right, hold on to your hats. This one's going to hurt. Oh boy. Oh, that one. Gosh, those guys are enemies. Oh boy, oh boy. And then the big granddaddy of them all. This is the tritone. They used to call this the devil's interval. I'm not joking. This one, I love watching children's faces when they do this. Oh! Oh, those guys are ready to just murder each other. Okay, now I don't want anyone to walk away feeling unsettled, so we're going to do one nice one to end. There we go. And we have resolved. So there's something that you can do either with your child or with a group of children. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and share. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.